In order to take your Spanish to the next level and sound more natural when you speak, you need to learn and practice Spanish connectors.
Yeah, those little words and phrases like en cuanto a, or por lo visto, or mientras tanto, that glue sentences together and make your conversations flow. Whether you're telling a story, or making an argument, or just trying to sound a lot less robotic, Spanish connectors are the key.
While we can't go over every connector today,
we are going to go over 14 different connectors that express causes, consequences, time, sequence, and more. So our first connector is going to be aún así. Aún así can mean even so, despite that, or nevertheless, and is used to introduce a statement that contrasts with or qualifies what was previously mentioned. So, for example, Marco knew he had little time to study, but even so, he decided to take the exam.
Marco sabía que tenía poco tiempo para estudiar, pero aún así decidió tomar el examen.
Or, the weather was terrible, nevertheless, we went to the beach.
El clima estaba terrible, pero aún así fuimos a la playa.
Or, I don't like soccer very much, but despite that, I went to the game with my friends.
No me gusta mucho el fútbol, pero aún así fui al partido con mis amigos.
Or, the restaurant was full. Nevertheless, they managed to get us a table.
El restaurante estaba lleno. Aún así, lograron conseguirnos una mesa.
Now, notice how in each of these sentences, aún así could technically mean even so, or despite that, or nevertheless. It doesn't have just one translation.
And this is true for a lot of these connectors.
Now, our second connector is por lo visto, which can mean apparently or it seems.
And it conveys that the information is inferred or observed rather than confirmed.
So, for example, apparently, Juan went on vacation without telling anyone.
Por lo visto, Juan se fue de vacaciones sin avisar.
So here we saw that Juan went on vacation, we observed that, and we're kind of inferring that he didn't tell anyone. We're not 100% sure. Another example could be, the meeting was today. It seems that she didn't know and she didn't come.
La reunión era hoy. Por lo visto, ella no sabía y no vino.
Or, apparently, the store closes earlier on Sundays.
Por lo visto, la tienda cierra más temprano los domingos.
Or, it seems they didn't understand the instructions correctly.
Por lo visto, no entendieron las instrucciones correctamente.
Now, our third connector can be por lo tanto, which can mean therefore, thus, or so, and is used to introduce a conclusion or result based on what was previously stated. For example, I studied a lot for the exam. Therefore, I'm confident I'll do well.
Estudié mucho para el examen. Por lo tanto, estoy seguro que me irá bien.
Or, there wasn't enough food for everyone. Thus, the chef had to cook more.
No había suficiente comida para todos. Por lo tanto, el chef tuvo que cocinar más.
The traffic was terrible. Therefore, Lucy arrived late to the event.
El tráfico estuvo terrible. Por lo tanto, Lucy llegó tarde al evento.
The project was a success. So, we received congratulations from the clients.
El proyecto fue un éxito. Por lo tanto, recibimos felicitaciones de los clientes.
Now, our fourth connector is mientras tanto, which means meanwhile or in the meantime.
And it's used to describe an action or situation happening at the same time as another, or during a period of waiting for something else to happen.
For example, dinner will be ready in an hour. Meanwhile, we can have an appetizer.
La cena estará lista en una hora. Mientras tanto, podemos tomar un aperitivo.
Marta is looking for a job. In the meantime, she's taking online courses.
Marta está buscando trabajo. Mientras tanto, está tomando cursos en línea.
Or, the car is in the shop. Meanwhile, you'll need to use public transport.
El coche está en el taller. Mientras tanto, necesitarás usar el transporte público.
The doctor will arrive in 10 minutes. In the meantime, keep the wound clean.
El médico llegará en 10 minutos. Mientras tanto, mantén la herida limpia.
Okay, here's a good time to stop and remind you all to please like this video, subscribe to the channel if you still haven't, and you can always head over to Buy Me a Coffee where you can donate to the channel so that we can keep making videos like this to help improve your Spanish.
And don't forget, Jeff, we also have memberships, and you can check the link here in the description of this video.
Okay, our fifth connector is a menos que, which means unless, and is used to introduce a condition that must be met to avoid a particular outcome or consequence. Now, we should make a quick note about this. When using a menos que, the verb that follows it is almost always in the subjunctive mood because it's normally expressing an uncertainty or a condition. For example, we won't go to the beach unless the boss gives me a raise.
No iremos a la playa a menos que el jefe me dé un aumento.
So here you can see we're not going to do something unless something else is true, and that's why we use the subjunctive. Or, unless David's dog gets his vaccines, he won't be able to go to the dog park.
A menos que el perro de David reciba sus vacunas, no podrá ir al parque de perros.
I won't buy that scooter unless the price is reasonable.
No compraré este scooter a menos que el precio sea razonable.
The bank will not accept that you pay less unless you pay interest.
El banco no aceptará que pagues menos a menos que pagues intereses.
Now our sixth connector is así como, which can mean just as well as, or such as, depending on the context.
It's often used to make comparisons, to express similarity, or to list things in addition to others.
Right, for example, the museum displays classical art, such as modern sculptures.
El museo exhibe arte clásico, así como esculturas modernas.
Or, the package includes pencils, markers, and pens, as well as a notebook.
El paquete incluye lápices, marcadores y bolígrafos, así como una libreta.
Joanna sings just as she dances, with great passion.
Joana canta así como baila, con gran pasión.
Or, we need fresh fruits, as well as vegetables for the recipe.
Necesitamos frutas frescas, así como vegetales para la receta.
Now, our seventh connector is a partir de, meaning starting from, or as of, or from onwards, and is used to indicate a starting point in time, space, or circumstances. For example, starting from tomorrow, we'll begin working on the new schedule.
A partir de mañana, comenzaremos a trabajar en el horario nuevo.
Or, the museum will be closed as of 6 p.m.
El museo estará cerrado a partir de las 6 de la tarde.
Or, from today onward, I'll change my eating habits to be healthier.
A partir de hoy, cambiaré mis hábitos alimenticios para estar más saludable.
The changes in the system will be effective starting next month.
Los cambios en el sistema serán efectivos a partir del próximo mes. Now, our eighth connector is hasta que, and it means until. It is used to indicate an action, event, or condition that will continue or remain in effect up to a certain point in time.
Now, a quick note when dealing with hasta que, when a verb follows this connector, if it's a completed action, it will be in the indicative. But if it's an action that hasn't occurred yet, the verb will be in the subjunctive. For example, I won't leave until I finish my work.
No me iré hasta que termine mi trabajo.
So here we see termine is in the subjunctive because we still haven't finished our work yet. It's not a completed action. Whereas here, the students waited outside until the bus arrived.
Los estudiantes esperaron afuera hasta que llegó el autobús.
So they waited until the bus arrived, but it's a completed action. So we just use the indicative mood. So another example when we see an action that hasn't happened yet could be the detainee didn't tell the truth until his lawyer arrived.
El detenido no dijo la verdad hasta que llegó su abogado.
So this is a completed action, so we use the indicative. But let's see one last example where we use the subjunctive for an action that has not been completed yet, like Lucas will be the administrator until they hire a new employee.
Lucas será el administrador hasta que contraten a un nuevo empleado.
Now our ninth connector will be ya que, which can mean since, because, or as, and is used to provide a reason or explanation for something that has already been mentioned. For example, Matt's children didn't go to karate because it snowed all night.
Los hijos de Matt no fueron a karate ya que nevó toda la noche.
Or, we can stay here a little longer since we're not in a hurry.
Podemos quedarnos aquí un rato más ya que no tenemos prisa.
As you're an expert in writing prompts, could you help us write them?
Ya que eres experto en escribir indicaciones, ¿podrías ayudarnos a escribirlas?
Or, I decided to order an Uber since the subway is very full.
Decidí pedir un Uber ya que el metro está muy lleno. Our 10th connector is con tal de que, and it means provided that or as long as.
And it's used to express a condition that must be met for something else to happen. Now, this phrase is always followed by the subjunctive mood, which makes sense because it's always setting up a hypothetical or conditional situation. For example, you can go out with your friends, provided that you finish your homework first.
Puedes salir con tus amigos, con tal de que termines tu tarea primero.
Or, I'll go to the company dinner as long as you come with me.
Iré a la cena de la empresa con tal de que me acompañes.
I'll lend you money as long as you pay me on time.
Te prestaré dinero con tal de que me pagues a tiempo.
They will accept the deal provided that the agreed conditions are respected.
Ellos aceptarán el trato con tal de que respeten las condiciones acordadas. The 11th connector will be tan pronto como. It means as soon as, and it's used to indicate that one action will happen immediately after another.
And the verb that follows tan pronto como will be in the indicative mood for anything that's certain or habitual, and it will be in the subjunctive mood for anything that's uncertain or an action that happens in the future. For example, I'll call you as soon as I can.
Te llamaré tan pronto como pueda.
So this isn't certain or habitual, so it's the subjunctive mood. Whereas if we say, we always go running as soon as the sun comes up.
Siempre corremos tan pronto como sale el sol.
So here is something that we always do. It's habitual, so we use the indicative mood, sale. And if we say, let me know as soon as you have news about grandma.
Avísame tan pronto como tengas noticias de la abuela.
So we still don't have any news about grandma. It's something that's going to happen in the future, so we need the subjunctive, tengas. Now our 12th connector, en cuanto, also means as soon as, and is used to indicate that one action will happen immediately after another. Like tan pronto como, it can be followed by either the indicative for habitual or certain actions, or the subjunctive for future or uncertain actions. For example, as soon as the meeting ends, I'll call you.
En cuanto termine la reunión, te llamaré.
So the meeting hasn't ended yet, so we need the subjunctive mood, termine. How about this one? As soon as I got home, I realized I had forgotten my keys.
En cuanto llegué a casa, me di cuenta de que había olvidado las llaves.
So this already happened. So llegué is indicative. And if we say, notify the engineer as soon as you have the construction plans.
Avísale al ingeniero en cuanto tengas los planos de construcción.
So tengas, the subjunctive mood is used because we still don't have the plans yet. And as soon as I saw the message, I replied immediately.
En cuanto vi el mensaje, respondí de inmediato.
So we've already seen this message. It's something that's already happened, so we use the indicative mood. Now, we have to be careful here because en cuanto a is completely different from en cuanto. So our 13th connector is en cuanto a and means regarding, as for, with respect to, or concerning.
And it's used to introduce a topic or to specify the aspect of something that's being discussed.
So for example, we could say something like, regarding the meeting, we still don't have a confirmed date.
En cuanto a la reunión, todavía no tenemos una fecha confirmada.
Or, concerning your questions, I'll try to answer them the best I can.
En cuanto a tus preguntas, intentaré responderlas lo mejor posible.
With respect to the product's quality, I have no complaints.
En cuanto a la calidad del producto, no tengo ninguna queja.
As for my opinion, I think we should wait a little longer.
En cuanto a mi opinión, creo que deberíamos esperar un poco más.
Now our 14th connector, mientras que, in Spanish actually has two main meanings.
We use while or whereas to contrast two different situations, actions, or states, and the verb that follows will be in the indicative mood.
It can also mean as long as when expressing a condition for something to happen, and will be followed with the subjunctive. So the meaning of mientras que will always depend on the context. When we mean it as contrasting something, we'll use a verb in the indicative mood to follow it, and when we use it when we're stating a condition, we'll follow with the subjunctive. So let's first see two examples where we contrast and use the indicative, and then we'll see two conditions where we use the subjunctive. So for example, she prefers peanuts, whereas I always choose walnuts.
Ella prefiere cacahuates, mientras que yo siempre elijo nueces.
Or, while some argue, others prefer to keep calm.
Mientras que unos discuten, otros prefieren mantener la calma.
Now, using mientras que as a condition, we could say something like, you can stay here as long as you don't make noise.
Puedes quedarte aquí mientras que no hagas ruido.
Or, as long as you're persistent in your training, you'll be selected.
Mientras que seas persistente en tu entrenamiento, te van a seleccionar.
And that's it. Don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel.
Now watch this video to keep improving your Spanish.
Until next time.